They gave me the medal that I deserved. They gave her the medal that she deserved, and sharing the podium was nothing but an honor. As a part of the queer community, I want A.B. Hernandez to know that we all have her back and we all have her support. Although the publicity she's receiving has been pretty negative, I believe she deserves publicity because she is a superstar, she's a rock star, she's representing who she is. And to be up there with her, that was amazing for me, honestly, yeah. I'm really proud of us both.
Good news, everyone! Tonight, new trans history just dropped. Research restored. Suddenly, Shakespeare. And more. Good news starts right now. First up, San Francisco has announced Harper Steele will be the Grand Marshal for their 2025 Pride Parade on June 29th. Viewers may recall Harper from the recent hit documentary Will and Harper, which followed the comedic Friends trip across the U.S. Harper formerly worked on Saturday Night Live, where she met Will Ferrell and became one of his best friends. So the film follows the course of their reconnection after her transition, as she also tries to reconnect with the real America under the politics and culture wars. The film brought her name to a new level of fame, but her influence in American culture through comedy has been around for decades, including being head writer for SNL from 2004 to 2008, and even an Emmy win in 2002. San Francisco Pride has been an annual event since 1970. Like New York City's Pride, it began to mark the first anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising. Long considered one of the safest places in the world for GSM people, San Francisco's Pride featured the debut of the original flavor of Pride flag in 1978, and the community there has often led the March of Progress when it comes to securing and protecting gender and sexual minority rights. That's certainly worth a celebration. The parade traditionally takes place the last weekend in June. Longtime viewers may recall the name Eli Erlick. She's been a very busy trans advocate for a long time, from helping to found and popularize trans student educational resources, the only national organization led by transgender youth, to the guerrilla installation of a Marsha P. Johnson statue in Christopher Park, which was so good it was retroactively granted a license to be erected by New York City. Eli has done a lot of other things, far too many to list here, but the most recent is one we've been waiting for since nearly the first episode of Good News: a book on trans history. From the publisher, highlighting influential individuals from 1850 to 1950 who are all but unknown today, Eli Erlick shares 30 remarkable stories from romance to rebellion and mystery to murder. These narratives chronicle grit, joy, and survival of trans people long before gender became an everyday term. Organized into 4 parts paralleling today's controversies over gender identity: kids, activists, workers, and athletes. Before Gender introduces figures whose forgotten stories transform the discussion. Some of the featured folks include Mark and David Farrow, 2 of the first trans teens to access gender-affirming medical treatment following overwhelming support from their friends, family, and neighbors. Gerda von Zoblitz, a trans countess who instigated an LGBTQ+ riot 40 years before Stonewall. Frank Williams, a young trans man who was fired from over a dozen jobs for his gender. And Frances Anderson, the world's greatest female billiards player of the 1910s. Bold and visionary, Erlick's debut uncovers these lost stories from the depths of the archives to narrate trans lives in a way that has never been attempted before. As you know, trans history is a passion of mine, so I, for one, am thrilled this book is finally out. A couple of years ago, the state of Utah commissioned a study to evaluate the impact of gender health care for trans youth. Last week, they got the results, and the facts over feelings crowd found themselves with a big heap of facts that didn't comport with their anti-trans feelings. From Mother Jones. In 2022, Utah Governor Spencer Cox was the rare Republican governor who seemed to truly care about the well-being of transgender kids. Quote, "I don't understand what they're going through or why they feel the way they do, but I want them to live," he wrote in a letter that year, explaining why he was vetoing a bill that would have banned 4 trans middle and high schoolers in Utah from playing on sports teams with classmates who shared their gender identity. Quote, "All the research shows that even a little acceptance and connection can reduce suicidality significantly." Meanwhile, nationally, Republican politicians were making opposition to trans rights a core tenet of their platforms, filing hundreds of bills attacking trans kids at the doctor's office, at school, and on the field. Early in the 2023 legislative session, Cox capitulated, signing a bill that placed an indefinite moratorium on doctors providing puberty blockers and hormone therapy to trans kids with gender dysphoria. The bill ordered the Utah Health Department to commission a systematic review of medical evidence around the treatments with the goal of producing recommendations for the legislature on whether to lift that moratorium. Quote, "We sincerely hope that we can treat our transgender families with more love and respect as we work to better understand the science and consequences behind these procedures," Cox said at the time. Now, more than 2 years later, that review is here, and its conclusions unambiguously support gender-affirming medical care for trans youth. Quote, "The conventional wisdom among non-experts has long been that there are limited data on gender-affirming pediatric care," the authors wrote. However, results from our exhaustive literature searches have led us to the opposite conclusion. The Medical Evidence Review, published last Wednesday, was compiled over a 2-year period by the Drug Regimen Review Center at the University of Utah. Unlike the federal government's recent report on the same subject, which was produced in 3 months and criticized gender-affirming pediatric treatments, the names of Utah's report's contributors are actually disclosed on the more than 1,000-page document. The authors write, "The consensus of the evidence supports that the treatments are effective in terms of mental health, psychosocial outcomes, and the induction of body changes consistent with the affirmed gender in pediatric gender dysphoria patients. The evidence also supports that the treatments are safe in terms of changes to bone density, cardiovascular risk factors, metabolic changes, and cancer. It is our expert opinion that policies to prevent access and use of gender-affirming hormone therapy for treatment of gender dysphoria in pediatric patients cannot be justified based on the quantity or quality of medical science findings or concerns about the potential regret in the future, and that high-quality guidelines are available to guide qualified providers in treating pediatric patients who meet diagnostic criteria. In the second part of their review, the authors looked specifically at long-term outcomes of patients who started treatment for gender dysphoria as minors. Overall, there were positive mental health and psychosocial functioning outcomes. Patients who were seen at the gender clinic before the age of 18 had a lower risk of suicide compared to those referred as an adult. Submitted with the review was a set of recommendations compiled by advisors from the state's medical and professional licensing boards, the University of Utah, and a Utah nonprofit hospital system on steps the state legislature could take to ensure proper training among gender-affirming care providers in the event it decides to lift the moratorium. But according to the Salt Lake Tribune, legislators behind the ban are already dismissing the findings they asked for. In response to questions from the Tribune, Representative Katie Hall, who co-sponsored the 2023 ban, issued a joint statement with fellow Republican State Representative Bridger Bollinger, the chair of the legislature's Health and Human Services Interim Committee, that dismissed the study's findings, saying, quote, "We intend to keep the moratorium in place," they told the Tribune. Young kids and teenagers should not be making life-altering medical decisions based on weak evidence. Why ignore their own review? Polling, the legislator's statement suggests. Quote, "Utah was right to lead on this issue, and the public agrees. Polls show clear majority support both statewide and nationally. Simply put," they said in their statement, "the science isn't there." Despite the fact that the science is there. That was what the study was for, and they have it now. Now, as Republicans once again blatantly lie about the facts they themselves paid for, we can take two positive notes to heart. First, we have yet another very comprehensive study to add to the literal mountain of evidence supporting gender-affirming care. Second, that even the most bullheaded Americans are quickly coming to realize if a Republican says something, the opposite is more likely true. In other research-related news, the Trump administration's order that erased transgender people, history, and medical data from government systems has itself been deleted. From Reuters, a federal judge ordered the Trump administration on Friday to restore articles by doctors and medical researchers that were removed from government-run websites focused on patient safety because they contained references to transgender people. U.S. District Judge Leo Sorokin in Boston sided with two doctors from Harvard Medical School whose patient safety articles were scrubbed from the website after Republican President Donald Trump signed an executive order requiring agencies to remove all statements and policies promoting, quote, gender ideology. The articles had been published on the Patient Safety Network, or PSNet, an online patient safety resource. It is run by the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, which is part of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The judge agreed with the doctors that the removal of the articles was, quote, a textbook example of viewpoint discrimination that violated the free speech protections of the U.S. Constitution's First Amendment. Quote, this is a flagrant violation of the plaintiff's First Amendment rights as private speakers on a limited public platform, the judge wrote. Sorokin ordered the administration to restore not just the two doctors' articles to the PSNet, but all other content authored by private parties that was removed from the website pursuant to Trump's executive order following a word search for items that contained certain terms. Rachel Davidson, a lawyer for Doctors Gordon Schiff and Celeste Royce at the American Civil Liberties Union of Massachusetts, in a statement called the ruling, quote, a victory for free speech and public health. As has long been established, medical science needs to be able to acknowledge the reality of trans people, but just as important, healthcare that includes trans people makes healthcare better for everyone. On the eve of a trans pride march through London, Sir Ian McKellen will host an all-transgender and non-binary production of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, and there's much ado about it. Directed by Phoebe Kemp, the production will take place on July 25th to coincide with a planned trans rights march through the Crown City and backed by a new theatrical company dubbed Trans What You Will. McKellen, a longtime GSM community advocate as well as a lifelong Shakespearean actor, will take the producer's post for this one. The production will also include a trigger warning alerting viewers to the fact that the comedy contains, quote, Shakespearean humor. Conservative snowflakes, be warned, these aren't your puritanical family values. Director Kemp said, quote, Twelfth Night already toys with gender and performance. It feels like Shakespeare wrote it for us. This reading is about joy, solidarity, and showing what's possible when trans and non-binary artists are at the center of the story. Organizers of the acting troupe said, quote, we believe in the importance, now more than ever, to provide opportunities for those under the trans umbrella to come together and make us laugh and cry, and show the world how precious and wonderful gender diversity can be. Twelfth Night is known for the comedic tropes of mistaken identity and gender-swapping disguises. Twins Viola and Sebastian are shipwrecked on an island ruled by lovelorn Duke Orsino. Viola, disguised as a boy, falls in love with Orsino, who is in love with the Countess Olivia. The Countess, meanwhile, falls in love with Viola, whom she believes is a man. In the end, all cases of mistaken identity are resolved and the main characters are paired off for marriage. The play's new version will not be the first time that casting decisions on Shakespearean works have been used to aid diversity and boost minority representation. According to The Telegraph, London's Globe Theatre has consistently staged gender-fluid productions in which famous roles are played by people of either gender. In 2022, for example, the theater made Joan of Arc non-binary. The Maid of Orleans, a saint who led the French fight against the English in the 100 Years' War, was given the pronouns they-them rather than she-her. Anti-feminist campaigners complained that the move was an example of female figures being erased from history. Though this performance, a one-night-only show, will be held in an independent theater in London, the labors will not be lost, as the production is expected to be streamed online as well. So fans of the Bard, as well as supporters of the community, are encouraged to enjoy and be party to one bright light of trans culture. One final note of less than good news to report. Due to ongoing and worsening medical issues, in part a result of the assault I survived this past January, the good news segment of TransPositions Weekly is going to be intermittent for the foreseeable future. I will continue to produce this show as circumstances allow, because I believe in the importance of putting a spotlight on what positive news there is for trans people, especially now. I just won't be able to do it every week, at least for the time being. But rest assured, there will be good news still in the days ahead. So, If you enjoy content like this, make sure to subscribe. Transpositions Weekly is the first and only weekly trans news show in the universe, and we need your support to keep this show going. Contribute at patreon.com/thetranspositions. Spread the word all over social media to let people know we're here. And tell us what stories matter to you by joining the community on Discord. Discord, of course, is where the memes live, and our meme of the week was posted by yours truly. And if you enjoy gender pride, or envy, wrath, greed, or any of the other genderful ways to aggressively exist, join us. Also, if you have good news concerning trans people you'd like to see reported on, you can tell us about that in the Discord as well. For the Transpositions, I've been Ember Belrad.